Hopefully, I won't make this too rambling. There are multiple thoughts in this, but one of the things, mainly wanted to talk about is the mistakes I personally make. And if you are those one, maybe look at yourself too, I guess, in being in a bubble, right? Bubble are the echo chamber, right? In this social media world, let's say like I don't watch traditional media anymore. Like I don't care what side they're leaning. The traditional media is not truthful. If you're still stuck in that thinking traditional media, whatever, national, Fox, CBS, whatever, right? You like to follow or listen to, fine. That's your choice. But personally, what I've seen is they are pretty much agenda-driven propaganda machines now. Pretty much. That's what I've realized. I used to at least, sometimes at least watch the news. I think I pretty much stopped it for 6 years now, almost. But occasionally I still used to watch maybe the only two news, not channels or anything, but papers or media outlets I used to kind of a little bit trust, and perhaps even now, although I haven't seen lately or haven't really looked into news articles by them lately, is Wall Street Journal and Christian Science Monitor. I know the word Christian Science Monitor things like, oh, it might be religious, but I don't know if they have religious content. The only thing I used to look at is their news stories, which I felt like they were not that biased, like kind of centrist, kind of, right? Neither right nor left, just reporting the story as it is. Wall Street Journal too, but sure, if you go to their editorial or whatever, they might be, leaning because editorial means opinions. So yeah, depending on who's the opining, could go left or right. But with the social media, the good and the bad is you're getting from different sources. But, like a YouTube, for example, that's what I usually watch the most. Mostly podcasts and all, but lately with elections, once you start going into the rabbit hole, it seems like it'll start popping up, and then you kind of essentially in that rabbit hole, like constantly, something other popping up, and that looks interesting. This looks interesting. And then you get into this whole bubble of, okay, everybody thinks like me, kind of. Because I'm watching this, everybody's thinking like me, which is actually BS. And that's what I realized. Like the reason I realized that is because I saw some posts even after this election and few, people kind of posting other side of, hey, or one side saying, oh, wow, the other side is stuck in the bubble. And same thing, other part, both sides saying they're stuck in the bubble. And I'm like, interesting. All it's like both are looking at completely different things and both are blaming each other, which I am also kind of blaming, whichever side I am, kind of have my viewpoints more attached to be, kind of straightforward. My viewpoint is more libertarian and more as much less government as possible, conservative on fiscal issues, liberal on social issues. That's kind of how I lean. I've always leaned that way, even back in India. We're pretty much living under a socialist type of government. Now, although India is a little bit more capitalistic, used to be that way. Always was, right? That's my middle of kind of the middle in the sense it depends. If you could talk about fiscal policies, if you're a leftist on the fiscal policies, you might view me as a far right, right? But if you're, liberal on the social policies, you might think I am your kind, like, hey, far left or whatever. But if you're a socialist or social conservative, where a lot of not you kind of care about how people behave and that government should control the people's behavior, then I might be the far left, right? Depending on, who you're talking to. So that's my view. The biggest thing is, doesn't mean that because I look at news certain way and then the social media feeds me that way, then I get into this bubble or the echo chamber, like, oh, everybody thinks like me. And perhaps, kind of majority might be thinking similar thoughts from what the polls say, right? Probably 80% or so are kind of the middle of the road, maybe not extreme in some, like a fiscal matters, maybe not extreme as me, but kind of mostly like, hey, government should control too much of the money or whatever rules or have too much bureaucracy, whatever the case is, right? And the social issues, same thing, the government should control, but they should control some things. Maybe the middle view, right? Anyway, the point is when somebody's calling out the echo chamber or bubble, what I've seen is they're in their bubble, essentially. And that reminds me, right? Like whatever that's what I caught myself like, oh, if I caught them with that, then that's what I'm in. Like I'm in the bubble too now. Right? If I'm just thinking, oh, they're in the bubble and they're thinking everybody else is in the bubble, perhaps I'm in the bubble, right? So that's the tricky part I see now as we go forward, because I think the traditional media will go away eventually, and it'll be replaced by the social media where you kind of customize essentially your feed. Not really that you're coding anything, but social media, that's how the algorithms, that's how they work. They'll feed you whatever content you're looking at. So you get stuck in that echo chamber. How do you avoid that? I really don't know. Because there are some things I don't want to even, look at because it feeds negativity into the mind, right? Like I don't like the victim culture anywhere. It doesn't matter right or left. Anybody who claims victimhood, that's pretty much a turn off point for me. You're claiming to be, regardless of the circumstances. I understand sometimes things will happen that's not under your control, but being a victim is powerless. That eventually will not lead to a solution. Whatever happened, then look at the solution. Yeah, sure, fight against whatever the wrong is being done if it's possible, but continuously living in that victimhood because of the history, that just kind of turns me off, right? So that's the tricky part, not avoiding that kind of, talk, news outlet or videos, then avoid me listening to the other side potentially. So my, question is, I don't know how to avoid that anymore in the future as we go forward. I think it'll become more prevalent. We will be more in the echo chambers. And one other point I wanted to make is talking about echo chambers, regardless of how much you avoid some of the terminology and language, how your brain automatically, regardless of knowing it's wrong, you still think that way. For example, this is a simple example, right? I was listening to this story, there's a news article, something said about, hey, this vice president talked to this extremist political party in Germany. Now, by sense, I kind of noticed like whenever somebody throws out extremist, don't believe it. It's all BS. That's whatever that fits their agenda. They call the extremists, to put people in a category that so people can hate and attack, right? That's what it is. Like Naval Ravikant was saying something like this, right? Whenever some category is put where it's like a overarching, like everything is put there, then don't believe it. Because if it's the details on net not there for exactly why that person, that the group, whatever they're saying or believing is wrong, then that's just, people trying to be in this new avoiding how to create this whole generality and hating one sect of people and making them inhumane, essentially. Anyway, I don't remember exactly what he said, something like that. I wish I had the quote, but anyway. Going back to that, German, I'm like, okay, yeah, Germany, Nazi, whatever. Yeah, must be something extremist, right? And then suddenly I run into a Bloomberg video. Some reason it popped up with this particular lady who's supposed to be running for the chancellor of this supposedly extremist party, or far right. I'm sorry, far right. Sorry, that's the word, right? These are far right. Everything is far right or far left. There's no middle, evidently. Anyway, it doesn't fit your viewpoint. So anyway, this lady starts talking, and this guy introduces a far right party, and she corrects him. No, hold on a second. And she says, she, I guess, knows about America and libertarian. He said, hey, I'm more libertarian, conservative than this far right, whatever you're talking about. I'm not far right any this. And then she kind of explains. I mean, the stuff that she said was like, hey, lowering gas prices and helping lower gas prices, controlling illegal immigration, just similar issues to what US has, letting economy flourish by less bureaucracy, all that stuff, which is what current US environment is, unless you are, kind of more left-leaning. I understand. We won't go into it. That's your prerogative. Whatever you believe, right? But the point is, she sounded very, very sane, like a normal, middle of the ground politician. And I'm like, wow, even I, knowing the BS, the traditional or the mainstream media spouts out, I got caught up in the wording of extreme and automatically tuned off them, right? And that's the point of the bubble, where once you start listening and this thing gets into your programming, then it's an automatic thing. Then if you don't watch out, if you won't watch your thoughts and won't watch your thinking, then you don't even pay attention because you don't have time. Everybody's busy, right? And that's what I'm like now going to keep myself anyway aware, like, hey, don't buy into anything that's being said unless there is proof and actually you hear the person talk or enough details about this party or this group, right? Their actual agenda written down or at least spoken about that actually says or seems like dangerous agenda. Like, hey, they're going to proposing to kill people, right? Or put them in gulags, whatever, right? Then yeah, that's extreme, obviously. Any physical harm or trying to restrict rights and contain people, that's what I see as extremist. So it doesn't matter left or right. That's what it is. But because you have an opinion or you don't agree with things, right? Now, if you're trying to do harm or kind of spouting off, like saying, hey, go kill this people or sect of people or put them in gulags. These sect of people are not, even human, or they should be killed or they should be restricted, whatever. Then yeah, obviously that's extreme and that's racist or whatever you want to call it. So that's the point. Like just this whole BS that people get into about extremist this or extremist that. Just be careful. Doesn't matter which side, right? I've learned now, both sides. If you just start listening to them, then they can take you in a path. Because none of the sides, like I don't care which party, being in US, I've learned I don't trust either party anymore. I only trust certain people in the party, right? Doesn't matter which side. There's few people in one side, very few minority I still trust in one side, and higher majority in the other side I trust now based on what they're saying, but that could change if their actions and results dictate something else that I can't trust. So that's my point. Anyway, Bubble talking about that, the mistakes, I don't know if I'll stop making. I think I'll still make those mistakes. I just have to be aware that I'll be making mistakes and cross-check mine and not to be too insistent on that I don't have to look at it because I already know. And that's the problem. Most people I think have is we don't want to. We don't want to feel, think we are wrong. But if at least we try to make an attempt to see if we are wrong, I think that'll save us a lot of this whole hatred, negative feelings, and all that stuff. If not for anybody else, just for yourself, right? Ultimately, once you're good, everything else is good. That's what I feel.